And I'm delighted to welcome everybody to our Year Ahead session. We did this on Thursday, as you know, and we're doing the same session again today. So with any luck, we fixed anything that we were doing wrong, and you'll get the benefit of the experience from Thursday. I'm not going to do a lot of introductions right now. We have a few people involved in the call as we go through. But I do want to first introduce Peter Rofe. Peter is our district trainer who accompanies me on the learning journey through the different years of the district governor progression. And Peter has been, as many of you will have already seen, absolutely invaluable in terms of our our learning curve. He will be operating a fair bit of the call today. Nancy Eidsvik would normally join us and was going to be monitoring the chat. Now, Peter, if Nancy's not here yet, perhaps she will come on and do that. I'm not sure. But between you and I, we can probably monitor the chat. One of the things that,
John, I'll pick up the chat. I'll pick up the chat till Nancy comes back.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks very much, Drew. That would be super. Now, this session is Zoom, as you know. It's not in person, which is what we would have very much preferred to have done, and be face-to-face. And those sessions normally take the better part of a day. And so what we've done is we've shortened it. We recognize that people's time is really important, and Zoom fatigue is a real thing. And so we've tried to design this so that we're covering a fair bit of content, but we're also leaving some time for questions. We want to be flexible and informal, but respectful of time. And so we will ask that people hold questions for the most part for when they're invited. We'll be inviting questions at several times along the way here. If there's something really urgent, of course, in terms of clarification, confusion, please put your hand up. Please use the hand function if you can, and also use chat, because sometimes there's an easy question of interpretation that we can clarify quickly, and that can be done in chat. So that's the sort of background as we start. The 2022-23 Rotary year, the theme from Rotary International and from our president, incoming president of Rotary International, Jennifer Jones, the theme is Imagine Rotary. And if you haven't seen the video or the material on the Rotary International website in My Rotary, I really encourage you to take a look at it. It's pretty interesting. Jennifer is, of course, a really good speaker, and you'll get to see her and her explanation of her theme in a video if you go and check that one out. So in terms of where we're going from here in this call, I'm going to start with the strategic plan. And the strategic plan for the district we've just done, and it's posted on the website. So you'll be pleased to hear we're not going to go through it in a bunch of detail, but the detail is available, and it's available on the website. And we will touch on some of the areas today. And the strategic plan jumps off from Rotary's priorities, the Rotary International priorities that Peter's put up on the screen. And that's kind of the backdrop, as well as the broad Rotary International approach. And we've gone from there and distilled down what we think is important in terms of our district to help us achieve the Rotary International priority and objectives. And I want to thank John Bathurst and his team, who are our strategic planning team at district. John and his team are set up to help the clubs, and a number of clubs have had their assistance in facilitating strategic plans, and that's been very effective. And more clubs will be asking over the coming period, and that process is working very nicely. We decided that if we're doing a strategic plan at district, we ought to take advantage of the expertise within that committee and ask them to facilitate our planning for district as well. Now, a district strategic plan is a bit of a different animal than a club strategic plan, but a lot of the principles are the same in terms of making it happen. And John and Bella and others were very helpful in making that come about. Also, Shirley, Pat Chamberlain, and Drew Antrobus, who will be my successors as district governor, were part of the process as well. And that reflects that this is a multi-year approach that we're taking with strategic planning. Strategic planning, of course, it's a wonderful tool. It helps us to make some clear choices, set goals, and that helps us achieve our goals. But we can't do everything. And this is true of district, just as it's true of clubs, just as it's true of every Rotarian. We have to be selective. There is so much that we can do within Rotary, and it's great to understand as much as we can. Not that anybody can really understand it all because there's so much, but it's great to understand as much as we can about what the choices are, but then we have to make those choices. And we're so much better if we're clear about our priorities and decide what goals we're trying to pursue. And that helps us, of course, to achieve those. So I want to talk about the 7 priorities that we've identified for the strategic plan for district. These are things that we want to address explicitly, but there are other valuable actions that are ongoing and maybe just as important, but we don't have to look at everything from the standpoint of, okay, what is it we need to change, do differently, because some things we want to keep doing what we're doing. And so, and they are very valuable and very important. In doing this, we have really focused a lot on our committees at district, and you'll see the way that it's structured in terms of strategic plan. You can go to the different areas that are represented by committees, and it's structured a lot that way. We also want to work with the committees in terms of touching base for how we're doing with the strategic plan. And we want to review it quarterly. We're going to be asking the committees, our district committees, to get back to us quarterly with progress issues and so on. And our governor team is planning to review this quarterly. And where this goes is then, as far as clubs are concerned, the assistant governors are really the focal point for the link between district and clubs. And we are also dealing with the goals in Rotary Club Central and what we've called KPIs, which we will be doing a bit differently this year. And we're trying to bring to bear as much as we can with the assistant governors in terms of knowing what's happening at district so that they can reflect that when they're discussing with the clubs. And they can provide advice, assistance, dialogue with the clubs that's knowledgeable about what's happening with districts. So that's the sort of general plan. So moving to the strategic priorities themselves and touching on some of them, we'll start with the sort of overarching priority, which is to provide effective and efficient support to clubs. Clubs, of course, are the heart of Rotary, and that's the fundamental role of district. That's the purpose of district, is to provide support to clubs. Now that's broadly writ, and it includes providing advice, providing inspiration sometimes, information about what is available. But that's our focus as a district, is to provide support to clubs. And sometimes we may want to ask ourselves if we're being effective and what we're doing, and I think that's fair play, and we'll ask for, we want to be very open to feedback in terms of are we meeting clubs' needs, and are there other things we should be doing with clubs. The next priority is the foundation. And the Rotary Foundation, of course, is our charity with Rotary. And it's a very much an ongoing priority for us. But we're also doing things a little differently. We've got an amazing committee. We have had an amazing foundation committee. It's going through some change, and we've got a new chair of our foundation committee next year. And that's our current district governor, Lauren Calder. And for those of you anybody who hasn't heard, probably most have heard Lauren talk about foundation, but he's a wonderfully passionate advocate for the foundation. And he gave at our foundation dinner in the Lower Mainland last weekend, he gave a wonderful talk about the foundation. So the foundation committee is a great resource. We're doing very, very well with foundation giving this year. We're hitting new highs, both for annual fund and total giving. And I'm not going to go through this in a lot of depth, but Lauren, and anyway, I couldn't do the same justice to it that Lauren does. But that is going very well. But of course, we have to continue to work at it. And there are lots of initiatives that the committee is pursuing. Now, I also want to move now to past District Governor Chris Offer. And Chris, for a couple of things. One is foundation related, and the other is not. It's Jennifer Jones' visit. But Chris is leading our district in both these initiatives. And as I mentioned Thursday, that when you really need to get something done, you ask a busy person, which Chris very much epitomizes. And Chris is just taken on a new role with Rotary International. And Chris is moving from vice chair to chair of the Peace Centers Committee. So he's been asked by the president of the Rotary Foundation to take that on. And that is the committee that oversees the 7 peace centers at the different universities. So big job, and delighted to see Chris doing it. So Chris, over to you for your couple of items.
Thanks very much, John. I really appreciate it. You all are, hopefully, if your email address is correct in the district database, got an email from me a couple of days ago about Jennifer Jones' visit to Metro Vancouver on July 10th. So this is part of a cross-Canada tour. Jennifer is the first woman to serve as the president of Rotary International, and the bonus is she's a Canadian. She's from Windsor, Ontario. She's been out here before. She talked to one of our seminars in Vancouver. She's visited in the past. Now she's coming back as the RI president on July 10th. She's starting in Windsor, stopping on July 1st in Ottawa with a possible meeting with the Prime Minister, on to St. John's, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, a day in the she'll be in the Calgary Stampede Parade, and then into Vancouver on July 10th. We hope you'll come out to YVR and meet her 8:30, but we'll confirm that closer to the date. Domestic terminal. Hope to have a big group of people out there. Then we have a picnic in White Rock. A group was meeting with the city of White Rock yesterday to line up all the permits and everything to hold that. And having the mayor of White Rock as a Rotarian is a bonus. So it's going really well. Jennifer, after that picnic that I hope you'll all participate in, I know I already got a message about interactors showing up. And then she's going to East Vancouver. PDG Bob Blacker from Rotary Club of Steveston is working with the Indigenous Women's Shelter in East Vancouver, and she'll visit the programs there. And then she'll join the Rotary Club of Vancouver at the rowing club in Stanley Park to celebrate their Ride for Hearing, which has raised hundreds. This is the 37th year, I think, for the Ride for Hearing, raised incredible amount of money. Nick Jordan of Creative Embroidery in Richmond has created a special line of clothing. I did circulate the brochure, but it's all available and it'll be on sale in Prince George. You can on it. So like if you're coming out to the airport or the picnic in White Rock, get one of the red t-shirts, get one of the vests or polo shirts and show your pride in our new president. So a great day there. Details will be firmed up over the next month, hopefully around June. Early June, we'll have it all locked in, what's happening, and we'll be able to let you know. The next big event is October 7th, Friday, October 7th at Quilchena Golf Course. Thanks, Magdalene, for setting that up for us. Our second $1 million dinner in District 5040. Immediate past RI President Holger Nack from Germany will be the keynote speaker. Basically, the $1 million dinner is to celebrate new gifts. We have many ways. I'm talking to 30 of the most generous donors in our district right now. This is to celebrate new donations to our foundation, and we're counting from April 1st to beginning of October. $10,000 US or a bequest. Some of you actually are already qualified. Every year we find people have left money in their wills and estate plans for the Rotary Foundation, but never told the foundation about it. So if you have a bequest, check that the Rotary Foundation knows about it. You may already be qualified to go to the dinner with a $10,000 bequest. And bequest can be an insurance policy, even your RRSP, as if the Rotary Foundation is a primary beneficiary of that. Here's an example. We held our last $1 million dinner in 2017. One of the reasons we're having such a wonderful year of our foundation is because of that legacy from that dinner. One example, PDG Michael Cruz died 2 years ago at age 97. He attended the last $1 million dinner and afterwards asked to see Carolyn Ferguson from the Rotary Foundation staff. He changed his will and left just under $100,000 US to, I think it was maternal health in his estate plans. This year that his will was probated and the Rotary Foundation received nearly $100,000. Many of you don't know, but Peter Rolfe and I, Michael was in our club, very active until he died, attended Rotary regular at age 97. Sad day for him, but his legacy lives on. That's what we're talking about for the $1 million dinner. So lots more information will be coming out later. I'll answer any questions and then I'm going to leave. I attended the full session the other night, and I'm leaving for Sweden tomorrow. As John mentioned, I'm incoming chair of the Peace Centers Committee. I'm going for an official visit and the annual seminar at Uppsala University, where we have a graduating class of Peace Fellows. And very appropriate time to talk about peace in Sweden, where that country and Finland are probably going to join NATO because of the Russian aggression in that area. And when the Russian bear is your neighbor, you start to worry more than Canadians do. And we're worried a lot. So I'm rambling on, but two great events and lots of information will be coming out there. Any questions? Great, thanks very much, John.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chris. And one thing I will just flag, because it came up on the call on Thursday, is that the $1 million dinner, of course, is not for everybody, and that's totally understood, and nobody should worry about it if they're not in the situation in life where it's appropriate for them to be part of the kinds of things that Chris has been talking about. Because as with everything else with Rotary, we have a fit for some folks and it's not a fit for other folks. We don't have to do everything. We can't do everything, and this is no different. It's something that works really well for some people, and we really need to reach out and make sure that people know about it and have opportunities and are recognized, but it's not for everybody. One of the things that's terrific, and it does not change, is that we have such great participation in foundations. So many people give as they're able to. And if it's the amount 25 US for every Rotarian every year, that's wonderful. the fact that people participate is the biggest strength we have of the foundation, both in terms of giving and in terms of participating in projects. So the $1 Million Dinner is just one part of this, and please don't feel that you necessarily need to be in that category.
Good,
so thank
good.
you, Chris.
Good point, John. And, we go from the picnic for Jennifer Jones free. Everybody can come out, children can come out, interactors can come out, enjoy a July day on White Rock Beach and celebrate Rotary. To some of our most generous donors. Our projects require that, as I said, I'm going to the Peace Centers. The Rotary Peace Centers cost $5 million a year to operate. That is a legacy of some very generous donors that do that. So we should celebrate and thank those people. Every time we go in a hospital, in the lobby of every hospital in your community, there's a wall of donors with plaques. They celebrate the donors to the hospital, the hospice, the Rotary Hospice, where PTG died a few weeks ago in Prince George. Celebrates the donors, and we celebrate and thank our donors in Rotary in a variety of ways. So yes, good observation, John. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you, Chris. Take care. Okay, so that moves us to, I think the next slide is membership. Did I get I got those mixed up the last time. Okay, here we go. Our next priority in terms of our list of 7 priorities is membership. And as you know, membership is something that is, you keep hearing membership, and it's absolutely the case. We've got to keep our pedal to the metal in terms of membership. That's both recruitment and its retention, engagement. Our committee has been very, very active there. With Shirley Pat and now with Dennis and Vaughn chairing it. And the clubs have been really active in terms of membership. And our district numbers are doing very well for membership relative to others in our zone, relative to others in North America. We're doing very well. Having said that, it's a very, very interesting time for membership. It's been very challenging in a number of respects. And when I say we're doing well, we've been essentially holding our own. We're up this year, but we usually lose a few at the end of June. And I hope that everybody will be remembering to touch base with their membership in the clubs in terms of, okay, if some folks are not as active, is there a reason? If folks are not, if you're not seeing folks, are we reaching out? Are we making sure we're touching base and checking in and trying to keep folks engaged? So that's really important. We did that well last year, and hopefully we'll do that well again this year. So I salute everybody for their efforts in terms of membership. And the committee is available. We've had what we've called pilot projects with the committee, and the committee will be available and is available to work with clubs on membership initiatives. Again, it's a resource. It's back to the theme that you'll hear more, you'll hear lots from me. We're there as a district to support the clubs, and your call as to whether you want the support, facilitation, and all of that, but that's what we're there for. So feel free to reach out, and we encourage you to reach out. So that's membership. This one is one that we've heard lots of feedback about how we have to do better with communications in all sorts of different ways. And it's a very open-ended question, and it's one that we're trying to address. We have had a little bit of a challenge thrown our way that's a little bit extra with the loss of Andrea Johnson, who was our chair of our public image, public relations committee. And she was doing a lot of work in the area. And Peter Rofe one of the many, many things that Peter does for our district. I mean, it's fantastic. Peter has stepped in. He was Andrea's predecessor as chair of that committee. And he has stepped in and is carrying the ball for the moment. He is looking at further to the strategic plan, which he contributed to, is looking at where we are most effective in going in the future with this area, and also recruiting for the new committee. And so that's one, and I'll put that pitch out there now on behalf of Peter, but on behalf of all of us, that if you have folks who are interested in public image, public relations, communications area, and might be willing to give some time to district, please let Peter know, because we really are more effective if we have more people involved. We've got a couple of people that are already involved, but that's an area that's huge. And if we can have some more people, we can do some more things. So that's public image. Implementing district diversity, equity, inclusion. This is an area that, as many of you will have seen, has been coming on gangbusters over the past year or so. We have got a district committee that's been really active. Artist Paxton Mann has been chairing it, and I will ask her to say a few words. But I will say also that you'll see with Jennifer Jones' approach to priorities for next year, but really it's already in effect. DEI is huge. The Rotary International Board has been addressing it and has come out with a statement that came out to everybody. But I'll turn this over at this point to Artist to say a bit more about DEI.
Thank you very much, John. Some of you may have heard a DEI presentation or two from me, or from Peter and I in the last couple of weeks. So some of this will be starting to sound familiar to you, I hope. The diversity, equity, and inclusion vision is as a global network that strives to build a world where people unite and take action, and to create lasting change. Rotary values diversity and celebrates the contribution of all backgrounds. Advancing DEI as a cultural change in Rotary is a critical part of our evolving as an organization. This is not just what I call a flavor of the month. It's not just a new program. This is going to be a new way of doing Rotary. And when you have the opportunity of hearing Jennifer speak about it, you'll be even more convinced that that's the case. And it meets the RI priorities, the 4 RI priorities that John spoke of in his presentation, of increasing our impact, expanding our reach, enhancing participant engagement, and increasing our ability to adapt. With younger and more open communications within our Rotary clubs, we'll be able to meet all those RI priorities in a more effective way. So next one, Peter. Rotary is committed to positive change through the DEI vision statement, which we've just mentioned, and the DEI commitment statement, framework, and code of conduct. As John mentioned, the RI DEI task force was formed several years ago, and they partnered with PricewaterhouseCoopers and conducted a basically round the world questionnaire on diversity, equity, and inclusion of 31,000 Rotarians. And the results that they got, we thought was going to come out in a task force report, but instead it's come out in 4 smaller reports. And you'll be very interested, if you haven't already, to read them all. And they're on rotary.org/DEI. And will be on the Rotary DEI website, which I will give to you at the end of the presentation. But these really are critical, and I think would very nicely form the basis. Each one would form the basis of a club workshop that you could have And as Jennifer says, it's definitely the right thing to do. Next one. Rotarians and Rotaractors live by Rotary core values. And those are fellowship, integrity, diversity, service, and leadership. We need to exemplify our DEI code of conduct as we interact with one another, and not just with one another at our club meetings, but with our program participants, our alumni, our honorary Rotarians, our friends of Rotary, project participants, and community partners. It's, I guess, has come to the attention of many clubs that sometimes there are folks within their clubs who are not, don't seem to be concerned if they're making comments that are inappropriate or maybe hurtful to some members of their club. And others have just kind of let them slide by. And that time is over. We are being called upon to be upstanders rather than bystanders, and to make sure that these people are notified that this is inappropriate behavior and should not continue, but that is not done in the middle of a Rotary meeting, but done quietly on a one-to-one basis in discussions with the president as well. Next slide. Oh, the code of conduct tells us very simply, and this should be something that we do automatically, but sometimes it doesn't happen automatically, that we should be considerate and contribute to a collaborative, positive, and healthy environment in which all are respected and valued. I think we've all talked to people who come into Rotary clubs cold, so to speak, and don't really click with anybody else in the club and feel invisible. And it seems difficult to imagine how in a Rotary club an individual could feel invisible, but it happens. And so I think that one of the things we should say to ourselves as we walk into a Rotary meeting is just say the word kindness. And I think that will help. Now, Peter, just so you don't have to look at my talking head all the time, has challenged us with a little bit of a poll just now. So he'll explain it to you.
Yes, so this poll asks the question, when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, you would describe yourself as, and there's got several choices there. So if you'd launching the poll now. Be honest, no one's tracking who's saying what.
Oh, forgot to submit it.
We're about ready now. All right, here are the results. Okay, so that's positive. Ardith?
Yes, in a moment, we're going to show you what the results were of similar questions asked of the district when we did our member survey in the late fall and early December, and they're fairly similar. So you'll be able to see that, but this is good because it's amazing how many people at the beginning of this exercise, the questions that we would get on the committee were, what's diversity, equity, and inclusion? And for those of us who thought we'd started down the road quite nicely, we were a bit discouraged to know that there were some folks who still weren't aware. And there's a big jump between being aware and understanding, and then big jumps between there and being committed, and the biggest jump into action taken. So we're hoping to see that blue line at the bottom really increase a lot over this next year as we get into the real meat of what the DEI the district DEI committee can do as a consulting agency to the clubs.
The blue columns indicate what the people answering the survey said about their perception of other members in their club. And so even at that perception of what others are doing, it's encouraging too.
So the yellow is self and the blue is others, right, Peter?
Right.
Yeah. So, and even as, yeah. Thank you for that. So here's the DEI survey, which is the survey we did of all our 50/40 members, and the importance to the club question. And this is the top 5 items that they told us. First of all, that members feel they belong, that the club grows and adapts, and that the club is relevant. This is increasingly becoming a topic of interest, and I would go so far as to say concern to some clubs. And the issue of sustainability. And I'm sure you heard Lauren speak of this at the foundation dinner, but it has to do with the kinds of projects we're doing and the legacy that Rotary is leaving, and what we look at when we look at projects, both locally and internationally. We need to really concentrate on sustainability. And then it's not what you look like, but what you contribute. A real interest, particularly by the younger members who are joining our clubs, that that they really are coming into our clubs to contribute, to make a difference, and to have an opportunity to do that. And here are the top 5 questions that were of importance to the community that our respondees felt. And I think you'll recognize a lot of the responses. Having difficulty speaking this morning. Fairness to all, being beneficial to all concerned, building goodwill, reflecting the community, and connecting all communities. Now, these last 2 are new because they're not Rotary Club or Rotary specific. They're reflecting our new look to partnership, and particularly partnership with communities and to all communities, which is certainly encouraging and will be a big push for us into the future. Now, we did, in our survey, we came up with 15 recommendations, and these are the highlights of those recommendations. And now the DEI committee, the district committee, has been divided up into small groups of 2 or 3 who are providing research in a lot of these areas. So that what we anticipate in the fall is that a club that is interested in either forming its own DEI committee or holding a DEI event or asking a DEI speaker to come to their club or do a Zoom presentation to their club, they will contact the DEI committee and we will provide advice and a consulting capacity. So the first thing is research and development, and we're obviously researching as many areas as we can right now so that we have a bit of a DEI library at hand to refer to the clubs who call us. That we have a club-driven approach. As John has said, the job of the district is to support the clubs. So we want to make sure that we know what you want when it comes to DEI, and that we are able to respond to your needs, and that your needs are obviously custom needs, and that we're able to meet those the way you want them met. And so the committee is going to be seen as a consulting agency. The clubs will learn more and work with community groups. And we're finding that folks who come to our meetings from the community who aren't Rotary members are quite interested in DEI and quite interested in joining the clubs. I have a little story to tell you. A young woman who is a recent UBC grad attended the the DEI facilitated peace conversation that we did at the Vancouver Sunrise Club last week. And she was so taken by the presentation and the whole aspect of both what Rotary was hoping to do with DEI and the facilitated peace conversation as a process, that she's going to join the club as a result and get involved in both those areas. So that's a good thing. Next one, Peter.
Ardith, when you're finished this, Drew has a question.
Okay. I think I'll finish it, Drew, and then I'll come to your question, if I may. So amongst the other recommendations was that clubs hold socials for members and community members and celebrate culture and recognition. This is something we don't do enough of. We need to be celebrating International Women's Day, Black History Month, BIPOC celebrations. It's just, there's lots and lots to celebrate. And depending on your community, if you're a community where there are a lot of Chinese people, there are all sorts of celebrations, Chinese New Year's, your members can tell you when things are coming up. And I think it's something we should all be doing, learning more about other cultures and recognizing events in those cultures. And then creating more opportunities for members to learn about diversity, equity, inclusion. And we will have several of those coming up over the next little while. I guess one of the early ones will be Jennifer arriving in July, and it sounds like it's going to be a really fun time. And just this issue of not being a bystander. Don't just stand at the back of the room or sit at the back of the room and let things go on in the club that you don't feel comfortable with, or don't reflect your values, or just don't feel right, don't make you feel good. Be an upstander. Find a way to speak to the individual who is making inappropriate comments, or speak to the president who will then speak to the individual. These things are very important. We offend people without realizing that we do, and it's very important that those things are addressed early. And reducing costs and increasing flexibility are still two of the biggest concerns that people have, and particularly young people and people on fixed incomes. So we need to find ways to deal with this, and we certainly wish to. So those will be things that individual clubs will consider. Next, Peter. Here we are. Here's the magic page. And this identifies URLs and links that you will want to attach yourselves to. Peter's going to put them up on Peter, are they going on the DEI website and the 5040 website, or where will you put them?
Well, the site's already, the landing page on the district website is already populated with DEI information to date and recordings and so forth.
Yeah.
And so everything's there.
So people just have to go into the 5040 website and then they can see the DEI page there.
It's in one of the drop-down menus on the main homepage. You can see it says diversity, equity, inclusion. Okay.
So so these are some of the postings on that. And one of the things I want to bring to your attention is the diversity, equity, and inclusion area of the e-learning section, which is, I think there are 14 modules, and they are extremely well done. I would encourage you to do them, and also perhaps encourage members of your club to complete them, and then to hold a session around a discussion around what people have learned as a result of taking the e-learning modules. Rotary 2020, Moving from Diversity to Inclusive Action, is a YouTube presentation that is very interesting. And then the last one is fascinating. It's Understanding Personal Bias and the Possible Impact on Your World. And it's a test that has been designed by Harvard and it's called Implicit, and it's extremely interesting. I encourage you to take it yourselves, because a lot of us think, oh, bias, we don't have any bias. And then you're asked a question that you can't answer, and you realize you can't answer it because you don't know whether you have personal bias in your answer or not. So just encourage you, please, to address these resources. There will be many more added to this, which will include books and articles. And so thank you very much for that. And happy diversity, equity, and inclusion studies. That's it for
Thank
me.
you so much, Ardith. And I'm going to invite questions at this point. This is such a broad area that we might have to limit them, but let's open this up to questions and comments. Anybody on DEI?
Yeah, there's a question from the chat with that, and it was specific to identify and flag the 5 and 15 recommendations. Have they been posted separately on the website?
Yes.
They are posted separately?
Well, they're on the landing page,
Yes.
the report.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But if anyone sees anything's missing, please let Ardith or me know.
Yeah, we can, now that Peter's got the page up, we can put, any of our documents there. So if anybody, as Peter says, if there's anything that someone wants to see that's not there, we can certainly make it happen. Anything else, Drew, on the chat?
No, that was the only question that came out of the chat,
Okay.
Ardith.
Does anybody else
Okay.
have any questions?
Okay, well, sounds good. Thank you very much, Ardith.
Thank you.
So we'll move along to our next area, which also involves Ardith as it happens. So we're not going to ask her to speak to it, but it's peace, and very much a district priority. We are a peace district, and we've got a couple of initiatives in the peace world that we have been doing that have been pretty effective. One is the Peace Scholars with Gloria Stout, and the other is the Peace Facilitation. And you'll have seen peace facilitators through the district because we've had a couple of sessions that people have done with Mediators Beyond Borders that are training sessions, and people are out there as part of their training. They're engaged in conducting, facilitating sessions with clubs, with district. They're gaining experience doing that as part of their training. So you've likely seen them, whether you knew it or not. And people are really putting a lot into this. We have asked Ardith to chair a rejuvenated peace committee that's really starting with the next Rotary year. Ardith, among other things, is also doing DEI, and she's finishing her term as assistant governor. So we really are respecting that this will more get underway next year in terms of the rejuvenated umbrella peace committee, which is going to look at what we're doing in peace more broadly than just those couple of areas, because there are other things, there's so many other things that it's possible to do in the area of peace within Rotary. And again, we have to be selective, but in doing that, we will be encouraging peace clubs and other things that we might want to do as priorities within district. And so Ardith and her committee will be taking a look at that. They're open to ideas, but they'll be trying to provide an idea for clubs of some of the options that are available in peace. So next is youth. Youth is, of course, an ongoing priority, and we are doing some things a little bit differently, but mainstream here is really getting back to a lot of what we've done with youth, and that the pandemic has interrupted. And it's really wonderful to see some of the things coming back in face-to-face world. As you're probably aware, Youth Exchange is back. Touch wood and all that we can still do everything that we want to do. Some of the things that were virtual have been less there's less enthusiasm about doing some of the virtual things now that there are more options face to face, and we're definitely heading in that direction. One of the things that Linda Roca was on Thursday and mentioned something. I did not see Linda today. Are you on, Linda? No, Linda's not on, so I'll speak to it. Linda was asking that Linda's our outgoing chair of the district youth committee. She's going to be replaced 1st of July by Gina Rawson, who is finishing her term as youth exchange chair. And Linda asked that we remind clubs to put their youth chair, youth director into Club Runner My Rotary, because she really wants to have the committee reaching out more effectively to the clubs. And this is an ask that actually I expand to include the different areas where you have club directors, club leads, and can enter it on Rotary Club Central in My Rotary, because that allows the district committees to more easily access the right people in the clubs, so that we aren't going through 2 or 3 steps to get to the right people, which is not terribly efficient in terms of everybody's time. And if everything has to channel through the president of the club, there's too much for the president, and it's really not necessary because we can have some more direct contact. So that is what I wanted to say about the priorities. Is there anything in general in terms of the priorities, or anything specific on any of them that people would now like to ask questions about? Okay, then we will move along, and I will just say a very few words about learning and development. Learning and development is one of these key areas that goes across everything we do in Rotary and district. And one of the things that we're reminded of is that the surveys that of Rotarians as to what's important in terms of joining, what's important in terms of staying. I think we're pretty well aware that the fellowship and service are right up at the top, but under them is personal development. And there are just such a wealth of ways that we can be trained and develop in Rotary. And we have our district has a team that's headed by Jan Gisborne, but really includes something like 14 people, I think she said, in total, including our trainers. We have district trainers. Peter is accompanying me on my journey, but we have district trainers that are attached to each of the district governors. And we also have committees that are doing a great deal in terms of providing learning and training opportunities. So we try to work together and the coordinate as much as we can, but there are also things like CATS, the President-elect Training Seminar, the President's Forum, the year ahead that we're doing today, one of the things we're planning is training for secretaries and treasurers for clubs. There's been a lot of changeover there. Something that we really highlight and continue to highlight is the Learning Center that's on My Rotary. And not everybody, probably most people on this call are well aware and are on board, but a lot of people still have not set up My Rotary accounts. And so if you don't have a My Rotary account, you're not able to get into the Learning Center and access the range of courses that are available there virtually. So that's all I wanted to say about learning. Then I'll move on to criminal record checks. And Peter, I think you've got a couple of polls for us.
A moment, please. So this simply, does your club deal with children or youth or vulnerable adults? It's simply yes or no. Watch the poll.
Excuse me, could you define vulnerable adult?
It's anyone who isn't sort of independent, if you like, who may be reduced circumstances physically or mentally, that sort of thing, or very senior.
People,
Is that correct, Meredith, do you think?
yes, yeah, people at our Christmas lunch, Karen.
I think. All right, so not surprising. Most clubs do deal with these kinds of people, so we have to be mindful the importance of criminal record checks if we're dealing with them. But John will speak on that further. And then just the second poll is, what is the level in your club among members who are dealing with children or youth and vulnerable adults of criminal record check completion? So I'll launch that poll. Okay. So that's encouraging. Anyway, John, over to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Peter. And that's not terribly surprising in terms of the poll results. And I'd like to jump into this with a couple of key messages. And to sum them up, one is that we've got great progress, we're doing well, and the other is we need to do better. So it's some of both. What has been happening with criminal record checks is that we have, as a district, been quite low in terms of the number of criminal record checks that we've had current for our Rotary population. And we're doing a lot better. We've been sending messages for some time to try to ramp up our participation in criminal record checks. We have had the assistant governors working with the clubs, trying to move this forward, trying to get reports in. And Lauren has been wonderful about stressing it with his club visits, with presidents' forums, and so on. So we've been trying to give some consistent messaging. Obviously, the clubs are getting it through to members because we are getting more participation. And it's remarkable too that this has happened at the time of COVID, when our participation with youth and youth particularly face-to-face, but vulnerable adults to some extent too, has been limited because of COVID. And so it's not as obvious that we're working with kids, and so we need a criminal record check. Now, having said that, the criminal record checks are a requirement if we're working with youth and vulnerable adults. Much as I love to say that we're working as district to support clubs, and we're trying not to be doing things that are saying you must, I'm afraid that with criminal record checks, there's a you must about it. Because we're required to do this as part of youth protection. And it's really something that Rotary International expects us to protect youth. And so does our insurance carrier expects us to comply with our own youth protection policies. And of course, it's general practice in so many volunteer organizations that it's well accepted, and government, of course, tells us we need to. It's general practice in so many organizations. It's just a given at this point that people working with youth and vulnerable adults will have a criminal record check. We have been behind in Rotary, and I am very uncomfortable, even to the point of being a bit ashamed about some of this, having had a background in youth sport and so on, where I see concerns about people playing a little loose with rules. And Rotary is usually an exemplary organization that really is doing the right thing in volunteer world. And we have to ramp that up with our criminal record checks. We have to not only get them for everybody that is working with youth and vulnerable adults, but we have to be able to show it. And that's important for our insurance carrier, but it's important for things like reputational risk, where if something goes sideways here, and even if it's beyond our control and it didn't directly relate to criminal record checks, one of the first questions we have to answer is, are your people covered by criminal record checks that are working with you? And we're behind the 8 ball as an organization if we can't answer that with a reasonable degree of assurance. And so it's something that we really need to make sure that we are able to show. And one of the things we've asked is that the clubs report to us who needs a criminal record check. That is working with youth and vulnerable adults, and that includes volunteers for the clubs. It's not just Rotarians. If somebody's volunteering with your club and working with youth on your behalf, they need a criminal record check. So we've asked for a list of the population, and we've asked for an attestation from each club that they are covering their volunteers, that their volunteers and Rotarians working with youth have a criminal record check. Those have been slow to come in, and they're essential. And so clubs are going to be hearing more about this if they aren't getting them in, because at the end of the day, we're going to have to, just as we say Rotarians cannot work with youth and vulnerable adults without a criminal record check, we are going to have to say that clubs can't if they aren't able to give us an assurance that they're following the youth protection requirements. And so that would mean that clubs would not be able to participate in things like Youth Exchange, RILA, Interact. And, we very much don't want to go down those roads, because youth is something we want to encourage, celebrate. Youth programs, I mean, they're great. It's wonderful. Clubs are involved. Clubs are doing their own thing as well as the district programs. And this we want to keep doing. And not every Rotarian has to have a criminal record check. It would be great if everybody did. That'd be ideal. But if you're not working with youth or vulnerable adults, it's not essential. And in the extreme, if clubs don't want to work with youth or vulnerable adults, they don't have to have criminal record checks. But we certainly don't want to go down that road because it's such an important and vital part of Rotary. So I'll stop there and I'll ask if there are any questions. I will ask that we not go into the detail of I've had a particular problem with the system, because there is some of that. And we have Ron Davis, who has been our compliance officer with district, and Ron is moving to become our youth protection officer, so he's still very much engaged. We're going to be moving to a couple of new people, Sarah Johnson, who's on the call, and Bob Crawford, who are going to be taking over from Ron in the youth protection world. But for right now, we're still leaving Ron as the primary contact. And Ron is very, very good. If somebody's got a problem with how to do a criminal record check, Ron can help with that. So the help's available. As I say, I don't want to go into the weeds of some individual problem with this as part of the call, because there are a number of things that can crop up as challenges. The system has changed a little bit, but there is an answer, is the good news. You will find that there, even though you might run into something, there's definitely an answer. Everybody can get a criminal record check. Is really the bottom line. Lori, I see a question.
Yes, we have a member in our club who is the president of his church, and he's just undergone a CRC for his church. And he's asking, can I use that certificate and submit it to Rotary? I think the answer is no, but if you could clarify, please.
Sure. We do require one specific to Rotary. The answer is it depends on which system he has used. If he's used the Justice Ministry system, which a lot of organizations are using and which we are using, it is possible to share because you can indicate that it can be shared and then that can happen. Now but the thing is, it has to be in that system. And the other thing is that it has to be a vulnerable sector check, because not all organizations require a vulnerable sector check, but of course we do for youth and vulnerable adults.
Thank you.
So John, I have a question in chat if you'd like to take it now.
Sure.
The question is there an allowable period for new members before getting the criminal record check?
Technically, everybody working with youth is supposed to have one before they're working with youth. What has happened is that if people have applied and have given evidence that they have applied, in practice, organizations have tended to give a little bit of latitude in that situation. But I would urge a lot of caution in doing that, because one of the things that's very insidious about all of this is that we are in volunteer world. We're often in this wonderful trust relationship because people are doing good in the world and they're doing good things. And you know, you really feel badly about limiting anybody. But the problem is, of course, that you have got that tiny percentage, that 1% or fraction of 1% of people that are using that trust to have opportunities to abuse kids. And it's insidious, and they're very good at it. And so we get, by being trusting, we end up leaving some vulnerability to the very people we're trying to help. And the criminal record check, of course, is a minimum standard. I mean, we need to do more to protect youth, and we can't fall into the trap either of saying that, well, we've got criminal record checks, so all is good. No, we also have to think about, okay, what are we doing that's safe for kids? Because this is only one part of it.
So John, we have a question from Sophie, Rotary Club.
Yep.
Hi there. I'm just wondering if, to complement the criminal checks that we're doing now, will there be training sessions offered in the future to help us navigate how to work with children and vulnerable people?
That's a really good point. I mean, we don't have training sessions per se for with exactly that topic, but what we do have is we do have youth protection training, and youth protection training is available in a couple of different ways. It's available online through the Learning Center in my Rotary. We've also got it as a district, because we can't have my Rotary access for everybody who's a volunteer. It's only people who are in Rotary that can get the my Rotary access. So the district has got essentially the same thing. And the other thing is youth exchange, which is even more robust. And youth exchange does do the kind of training that you're talking about. They're ramping that up, and they've got sessions coming for host parents, for youth exchange officers, and that program kind of leads the way, which is a good thing, because of course we've got way more vulnerability with youth exchange than we do with anything else, because we've got all sorts of contact with club members and so on.
So John, we have a comment in chat that I wondered if you might respond to it. It says some clubs are having new members get CRCs automatically when they join the club.
And that's wonderful. I really like that to see. That's the ideal. That's absolutely best practice if we can get everybody in with a CRC when they join. That's first class. But I know it's not easy to do, and you will have some people. There are examples. We hesitate to make it compulsory for Rotary for a bunch of reasons. There are examples of people that have concerns that one has to respect, particularly people who may be coming from other countries who are distrustful of the police intrusion into their life. And but still, they have to do it if they're working with youth or vulnerable adults.
John, just for a moment, I can share the website landing page for youth on the district web if you'd like, just as a quick reference, but if not, we can move on.
Sure, if you want to. It's easy to, yeah, if you've got it handy, yeah. That's good. It's and the link will take you to the I'm not sure, youth protection policy probably is where it is. Anyway, the link will take you to the Justice Ministry site, and so it you can find out about it there. They have just changed their system a little bit to where we now have to use an app to get into it directly, but to do the CRC. But if that doesn't work for people, and I know not everybody is going to be wanting to use an app, you can print off a note and send it to Ron Davis to authorize him to go forward. You send him a note with a copy of your driver's license, and then he can move the process ahead for you.
There's lots of information there.
There is a ton. Yep.
So John,
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
The district is asking the clubs to respond to this request for information or a report that you want on CRC. Can you just quickly tell us what that's about and how we go about doing it?
Sure. The report is listing and the clubs have all been provided more than once with the information with the request, which is really listing the Rotarians and volunteers who are working with youth and vulnerable adults, what's their status, and an attestation that that the club is getting criminal record checks for Rotarians and volunteers working with youth and vulnerable adults. So it's pretty simple form.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, well then we'll move along. So next up on our agenda is to Nancy and Drew have been, there are resident experts in Rotary Club Central. And as we've indicated, we really need to get on to My Rotary in order to get at Rotary Club Central. So if anybody's not on My Rotary and doesn't have an account, you need to get that to get on to Rotary Club Central. And Drew and Nancy aren't going to make a presentation per se, although they may say a few words now, but they're really available here today to try to give us any answers to questions that may be out there about Rotary Club Central. And Rotary Club Central is something that is really important for our clubs because that's where we're entering goals and we're recording our progress. And we found that it's one of the reasons that we're quite certain that our district is really shining in terms of when you look across how we're doing across our zone. We're the only district for the last couple of years, Lauren very brightly and proudly points out, that has gotten every club entering their goals in Rotary Club Central. We're the only district that's managed to do that. And we also are leading in our performance in terms of achieving goals in membership and in foundation in particular. And we really think that this is helped by the explicit attention that we're paying to our goals, because the clubs are setting goals and then they're trying pretty hard to achieve them. And by and large, on foundation, we're very much exceeding our goals. In membership, not so much, because we've been really ambitious, but it's good to be ambitious. And again, we're doing well. So the Rotary Club Central is a tremendously useful tool. We've also been using key performance indicators in our work with clubs, and we're changing how we're doing that. Instead of asking for as much information for clubs, we're going to be providing it from the district committees to the assistant governors who then work with the clubs in terms of is this helpful information, and how how can we help you to achieve those goals? So we're turning that around a bit, and this is a tool. So Nancy and Drew.
Well, thank you, John. I just need clarification though. Everyone should know that on Thursday, we had the Rotary Club Central section, and John chose to talk about the criminal record checks. So John, are you allocating this time to Rotary Club Central?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
We get our initials mixed up.
Oh, I see. Is that what it was? Because you didn't give us much time to talk about Rotary Club Central, so I'm glad that this is what it is. So what I would really like is if any of the clubs are having issues on Rotary Club Central and they would like to talk about it, now is the time to do it, because Drew is the expert. He was one of the designers of doing the KPI from the Rotary Club Central. So we're here to help you with that. And we all have also found in the district that because 100% of our clubs are on Rotary Club Central, all our clubs are doing very well. And we believe that it's because the Rotary Club Central is setting the goals for your club, which is the whole point of how it's helping your club. If you've got goals, you know where you're going. If you don't have goals, you have no idea where your club is going. So please, if you have any questions, let's hear them now. Thank you. West Van Sunrise.
That Karen?
Yep. Yes, I see Karen there. Yep.
Hi, Karen.
You're on mute, Karen.
Sorry. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Nancy, Ardith has been helpful, but I'm not one of those that does well at Rotary Club Central, but I think I've filled it all out, but and do it. But we had a problem, right, Ardith, with we couldn't change or couldn't edit the membership numbers on those bar graphs, right, Art?
Yeah, initially, I think.
Well, I couldn't ever do it. And I've also found out that you cannot change anything in your foundation results. That has to be done by RI, correct?
Exactly. Yes. And
Okay.
that is the reason why, Karen, you can't change it. It comes in from RI automatically, both on your membership and on your foundation and on your club projects. It comes
Okay.
in.
Well, there's a real disconnect because our membership chair has been very conscientious. We have proof of that, of sending every new member in and even gets numbers for them for our club. And yet we're still back to last June's membership numbers on those bar graphs. So there's some communication disconnect.
Well, that surprises me, Karen, because if he has updated it on rotary.org, then automatically that report will come back to Rotary Club Central. So why don't you give me an opportunity to look at it after this?
Would you
and
please?
You and I
Yeah.
can talk further on that, and Ardith. Yeah.
Okay, because that was an issue that the right hand and the left hand didn't seem to be communicating
Yes,
about it. So
there's going to be a reason why that's doing
Yeah.
that. And I think it's important that we correct it. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay, there are a couple of things I'm going to jump in responding to Karen. One is that the Nancy and Drew are available, and they're excellent resources, I might say, in terms of any of the particular issues, individual issues that you have with Rotary Club Central and with Club Runner. I mean, the thing is that, and of course, Murray Wood, our webmaster, is the real expert with Club Runner, but there is help. The other thing is that you mentioned that some of us are not so wonderful about being able to deal with some of these systems, and that's absolutely true. It's true of club presidents. It's true of the district governor track too. Lauren is great at this stuff, but I'm not. And so some of us need help, and it doesn't have to be everybody's cup of tea. And one of the things that we really want to encourage with district is that you don't have to have the club president or even the club secretary who is your go-to person with Rotary Club Central. You can designate somebody else. And one of the things that some clubs are doing, and I think it makes lots of sense, is that they've got somebody who likes doing this stuff who likes handling the data. They can't necessarily handle all the content, but that likes handling the data in the system. And they are that club's person that handles their Rotary Club Central and perhaps their club runner functions. And so, you know, if you're not comfortable with it, probably somebody in your club that is very comfortable with it. And so get them involved.
Yes, that's what, thanks, John, because that's what our club has done, is we've had a central person doing it. It's not the president. Generally, it's the executive secretary now that is handling it. The nice thing about that too is they become familiar with how RCC works and how the RI Rotary.org works. So they get through all these issues. What we have found in the past is it's the PEs like myself that are coming in that haven't used it every year. So you're not getting a continuity flow in doing RCC. So if you can designate somebody in your club to do it, now you keep that continuity flow, not only this year, next year, excuse me, but the year after also. So.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. And if I could just emphasize what Drew has said, if you do assign somebody who's a member to do Rotary Club Central, they will not have access to change it. So my suggestion is to appoint them as executive secretary. And then they will have the authority to go in and correct or enter your Rotary Club Central, because that's where a lot of clubs are having a problem. They do this and then they say, well, they can't enter it. So please consider that. Karen, did you have another question?
She just forgot to take her hand down, I think. There.
Okay, all
There we
right.
go.
Peter.
Okay.
Yeah, just I always add a footnote that the value of Rotary Club Central is not only to track where you're going, your board and so forth, you're against your goals, but any one of your members can go in and see where you are. And it adds to the belonging sense that I know what's going on, even though the board might be very good at communicating with the members. There, your statistics and what we're all, the club's doing in all the different projects. So that's another reason to participate in Rotary Club Central.
Yes, and let me put in another plug for that, Peter, that you mentioned, is there's a number of clubs that aren't updating the projects. Please update your projects on an ongoing basis, also with your volunteer hours, because from a club perspective, this gives you your economic impact. And the economic impact of Rotary is doing in your club, be in the district, is something you can take out and use as a membership tool and go out to future members and say, look what our club is doing as far as an economic impact in the community goes. Look what our district is doing as far as an economic impact goes. And keeping your other administration hours gives you what your member engagement is, because certain hours cannot be included in your service projects, such as board meetings and that type of thing. But what that will give you is what your member engagement is. So if you keep track of these hours, it gives you economic impact as to what you're doing in your community, what you're doing in the world. And it also gives you member engagement from your administration hours. So just two key features of RCC that is beneficial to the club in trying to get new members, trying to get donations too. You know, you go out to a prospective person that is looking to donate, and they can come back and say, this is the economic impact that your dollars are going to do within our community. So.
And Johns Hopkins University recommended $25 US an hour for project hours. And you can translate that into a dollar figure, general one, of course.
That's right.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank
Jan, did you have a question?
No, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to put another plug in for Rotary Club Central. I find one of the things that is useful about it is it also creates a historical record of what your club has done for service projects. So when you get a new member, you can tell them to go in there and they may look at something that your club did a couple of years ago. There's a brief little description and they can sort of see, okay, how many hours did it take? How many volunteers do I need to get? And is this worth doing? So sometimes when somebody will bring up something in our club, we'll go back and go, oh yeah, okay, that's what we did, because sometimes the person that organized that event is no longer in the club. So it's a central place to keep a historical record. So
Good point. Thank you, Jan. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. And I'm going to jump in and say that that's been a great discussion on Rotary Club Central. We're just about at time, and I really want to give a couple of minutes for people to raise anything else that you want to before we close. So is there anything else that somebody's got that they'd like to raise? Okay, Peter, is your hand up to speak?
I think you just forgot there.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I just was double checking. Okay, well then, in closing, thank you very much for everybody for coming today and taking part of your Saturday morning, and we'll hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I do want to flag some dates on the way by here, and these are dates that have already, this is nothing new, it's dates that have already come out, but I just want to reinforce that we've got some of these things coming up. If it tweaks, if it tweaks your interest, as it were. The district conference, May 20 to 22 in Prince George. I see registrations keep going up for it, and that's wonderful. It's going to be a fun conference, and the Northern hospitality is also always wonderful. So if anybody hasn't signed up yet and is able to go, May 20 to 22 in Prince George. Our annual general meeting for district is going to happen by Zoom this year. So we think that gives us potential for better participation. And it's going to be May 25. The notices have all gone out to the clubs. And of course, the club reps are expected to attend, but it's open to every Rotarian. So if anybody wants to attend the AGM, it's very, very open, May 25. Our district installation dinner is going to be June 21 in the evening in New Westminster, and folks are welcome to attend that as well. The Jennifer Jones visit that Chris mentioned, July 10. And there are several functions that people can attend, and they're going to be very open, and it would be very nice if we have a really good turnout for Jennifer. I mean, part of the drill is that she's reaching out to the population as a whole, but we're really showing something about Rotary to the population as a whole. And so the more we're out there supporting it, I think it all helps send that message, that broad message. $1 million dinner for those that it's appropriate for is October 7th, and Holgernack for that. Finally, club visits. I'm really looking forward to visiting all the clubs. Hopefully we can still do this on a face-to-face basis. It's looking good. And I'm really looking to face-to-face meetings through the fall with every Rotary Club. We're in the process of setting that up with the assistant governors, and I'll be seeing you in the fall. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much, and have a really good weekend.
Thanks, John. Excellent session.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, John. It was
Thank you.
great.
John,